Okay, so get this. We're diving into AI and drug development today. Like, what if we could make life-saving drugs way faster?
Yeah. Instead of taking decades, imagine developing new drugs in, like, a fraction of the time.
That would be amazing. And that's why I'm so pumped about this software Pioneer. It was developed by Cleveland Clinic and Cornell, and it's using AI to, like, decode the human body.
You mean the interactome, right? That crazy web of protein interactions.
Right. It's like this massive dance with tons of proteins.
Tiny dancers.
Exactly. But then when you get a disease-causing mutation, it's like someone trips and the whole dance floor just explodes.
Total chaos. And trying to find the exact protein interaction to target with a drug, it's like, where do you even begin?
So how does Pioneer even help with all that?
Well, picture a detective, right? But this detective has access to every single piece of evidence you can imagine. DNA, 3D protein models, past interactions. That's Pioneer. It uses AI to sort through all that data and figure out which protein interactions are actually causing the disease.
So instead of just testing a ton of stuff randomly, scientists can use Pioneer to focus on the most promising targets right away.
Exactly. Think about the time and money that could save. It
Yeah.
could completely change drug discovery.
And they've actually tested this thing out in the lab, right?
Oh, yeah. They tested it with thousands of mutations and interactions, and it nailed it every time. They even used it to find potential drug targets for lung and endometrial cancers.
Wow. So it's not just for cancer, though, right?
Nope. It can be used for all sorts of diseases like alopecia, even von Willebrand disease. And get this, Pioneer is publicly available.
Wait, so anyone can use it?
That's right. This kind of open access could totally change things. Allow smaller research teams to make these huge discoveries. Just imagine the possibilities.
So we know it works, but what does that actually mean for medicine, for patients?
Well, if we can find drug targets faster, it means we can get life-saving treatments to people so much quicker.
So we're talking about potentially cutting years, maybe even decades, off the drug development process.
Yep. And this is just the beginning. Pioneer is like our first look into a future where AI helps us understand and treat diseases in a whole new way.
It's like we have this brand new lab, and it can analyze the human body at this crazy level of detail. But how does it actually work? I mean, how can it zero in on the exact protein interaction that's causing all the trouble?
Great question. Let's break it down. Like, how does Pioneer actually find the bad guys in all that data? Remember the interactome? It's like a giant social network, but for proteins.
Yeah, and when a mutation shows up, it's like throwing a wrench in that network, causing a ripple effect that leads to disease.
Right. And Pioneer takes all that data we talked about, genomic sequences, protein structures, a whole shebang, and uses it to build this detailed map of the protein network. Then it looks at how a specific mutation disrupts the network, and that's how it pinpoints those protein interactions that are most likely causing the disease.
So it's not just about finding the mutated protein itself. It's about understanding how that mutation messes with the whole network of interactions.
It's like trying to find the one faulty wire in a giant electrical grid that's causing the whole city to black out. It's that specific.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how does knowing that one interaction help scientists actually develop new drugs?
Well, imagine you're trying to develop a drug for, let's say, Alzheimer's. Traditionally, you might spend years testing all these different compounds, hoping to find one that works. But with Pioneer, you already know what to focus on.
Because you know exactly which protein interaction to target.
Bingo. Now you can develop drugs that specifically mess with that interaction, so you're way more likely to be successful, and it could take years less time. It's like having a treasure map.
So we're talking about making drug development way more efficient and targeted, which means better results for patients.
Exactly. And this is a big deal, especially for folks with rare diseases who often have to wait a long time for new treatments. Pioneer could change that.
This is seriously mind-blowing. It feels like we're witnessing a turning point in medicine. How did the researchers even come up with this idea? Like, what sparked this whole thing?
Well, they knew that the key to understanding and treating diseases was hidden in the human interactome. But studying this thing, it's like crazy complex, even with all the tools we had before.
So they needed a new tool, something that could analyze the interactome in a way that's just not humanly possible.
Yeah. And that's where AI comes in. They saw how AI could handle massive amounts of data, which is exactly what you need to study the interactome.
So they basically taught AI to become an expert in protein interactions.
You got it. They fed these AI algorithms tons of data on proteins, how they interact, the effects of mutations. And over time, the AI learned to see patterns and predict how proteins interact and how those interactions are affected by disease-causing mutations.
Like a digital detective that can sift through all the evidence and find the culprit behind a disease.
Exactly. And that's the power of Pioneer. It lets us see the interactome in a whole new light, revealing connections and patterns that we might have missed otherwise.
This is incredible. But if anyone can access Pioneer, won't that just lead to a ton of new drug discoveries? Like, could it even change the entire pharmaceutical industry?
That's a great question, and it's one that has a lot of people talking. This open access thing could really shake things up.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What kind of changes are we talking about?
Well, for one, it could even the playing field between those huge pharmaceutical companies and smaller research teams. Drug development has always been this expensive, time-consuming process that only the big players could really afford.
But with Pioneer, smaller teams can access the same powerful tools and potentially make groundbreaking discoveries.
Exactly. And that means more competition, which could lead to faster innovation, more breakthroughs happening all the time.
That's amazing. It opens up a whole world of possibilities. But how will those big pharma companies handle this? Will they embrace this open access idea, or will they try to hold on to their power?
It's a tough question, and honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag right now. Some companies are actually pretty excited about it and are already looking for ways to work with smaller teams. They see Pioneer as a way to speed up their own research and maybe even save some money.
So it could be a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, potentially. But then there's some companies that are definitely a little nervous. They're used to having a lot of control, and this open access thing is kind of shaking things up.
It's like the Wild West of drug discovery now. But that's also kind of exciting, right? The potential for new discoveries is huge.
Absolutely. It's a really exciting time for medical research. The old barriers are coming down, and things are moving faster than ever. It's full of opportunities.
I'm starting to feel like we're on the edge of a revolution in medicine. But before we get too carried away, let's think about what this means for actual patients. How will this technology affect their lives?
That's the most important question. All of this research and innovation is ultimately about helping people. And Pioneer has the potential to do that in a few ways.
Okay, let's hear it. How will Pioneer actually make a difference in people's lives?
Well, first off, it could lead to better treatments for a wider range of diseases. We've already talked about how Pioneer can help scientists find drug targets faster, which means new therapies could be available sooner.
So patients won't have to wait as long for new treatments.
Right. And it's not just about speed. It could also lead to more personalized treatments. Remember how Pioneer can analyze the interactome on an individual level?
Yeah, it's like creating a custom treatment plan based on your unique genes.
Exactly. This kind of personalized medicine could be revolutionary, leading to better outcomes and fewer side effects.
Wow, that would be incredible. It's like having a medical team that's totally focused on your specific needs. But how far off is this personalized medicine future? Is it something we can expect to see soon, or is it more of a long-term goal?
That's a good question. Personalized medicine is definitely a hot topic right now, and Pioneer is playing a big role in pushing it forward. We're not quite at the point where every treatment is tailored to the individual, but we're getting closer.
So it's not just science fiction anymore, it's actually becoming a reality.
Exactly. And Pioneer is helping to make that happen faster. We're already seeing it being used to develop targeted therapies for certain cancers and other diseases.
That's really encouraging. It gives hope to people who are struggling with these difficult illnesses.
It does. That's what makes this work so exciting. We're not just developing new technologies, we're using them to actually make a difference in people's lives.
And speaking of making a difference, I'm curious about the bigger picture. We've talked about how Pioneer could democratize drug discovery and lead to new treatments. But what about its impact on the scientific community as a whole? How is it changing the way researchers do their work?
That's a great question. Pioneer isn't just a tool, it's like a catalyst for change. It's bringing people together, breaking down those old barriers, and encouraging researchers to think differently about how they tackle these complex scientific problems.
Okay, so tell me more about that. How is Pioneer changing the research landscape?
Well, like we talked about, the open access nature of Pioneers is a big deal. It allows researchers from all over the world to use the same powerful tools, no matter where they are or how much funding they have.
So it's breaking down the barriers that often prevent scientists from working together.
Exactly, and that's leading to more collaboration between different fields, like computer science, biology, chemistry, you name it. They're all coming together to figure out how to use Pioneer to its fullest potential.
It's like a scientific melting pot with everyone bringing their own expertise to the table.
That's a great way to put it. And all those different perspectives are leading to new discoveries and insights that wouldn't have been possible before.
So Pioneer isn't just changing drug discovery, it's changing the entire way science is done.
You got it. It shows how important open access and collaboration are for scientific progress.
This is truly remarkable. It feels like we're at the beginning of a new era of scientific discovery, driven by collaboration, open access, and the power of AI.
I completely agree. The future is bright, and I can't wait to see what amazing breakthroughs come out of Pioneer as more and more researchers around the world start using it.
Well, this has been a mind-blowing deep dive into the world of Pioneer and how it could revolutionize drug discovery. But before we wrap up, I have one last question that's been bugging me.
Okay, I'm listening. What's on your mind?
We've talked about all the amazing things Pioneer can do, but are there things it can't do? Are there challenges that researchers still need to overcome?
That's a smart question, and it's important to remember that Pioneer, as amazing as it is still pretty new. There are definitely limitations and challenges ahead.
So what are some of those limitations? What are the frontiers that researchers are still exploring?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is just how complex the human interactome is. It's this massive, intricate network, and we're still just starting to understand it.
It's like trying to map the entire universe, but on a tiny scale.
Exactly. Pioneer has made a lot of progress, but there's still so much more to learn. We need to keep developing better tools to analyze this complex network and really unlock its secrets.
So it's an ongoing process of discovery and improvement.
Absolutely. Science is all about pushing the boundaries of knowledge, and Pioneer is a powerful tool that's helping us do just that. But it's not a magic solution. It's a stepping stone to a deeper understanding of human biology and disease.
And speaking of stepping stones, what about the future of Pioneer itself? What are the next steps for this technology? How will it continue to evolve and get even better?
That's a great question. The team behind Pioneer is always working to make it better and more powerful. There are a few key areas they're focused on.
Okay, let's hear about those key areas. What's next for Pioneer?
One big focus is on expanding the database of protein interactions. The more interactions Pioneer knows about, the more accurate its predictions will be. They're also working on new algorithms that can handle even more complex data, so they can really dig deep into the interactome.
So they're basically making Pioneer smarter and more efficient.
Exactly. They're also figuring out how to integrate Pioneer with other AI-powered tools and platforms. The goal is to create this super connected healthcare ecosystem where different technologies can work together seamlessly.
It's like building a dream team for medical research.
That's the idea. And they're also working to make Pioneer easier to use so that researchers from all over the world can access and use it. They want to empower as many scientists as possible to contribute to medical advancements.
It's like they're democratizing access to this incredible tool.
Exactly. And that's really something special.
Well, this has been an absolutely incredible deep dive into the world of Pioneer. We've covered so much, from how it decodes the human interactome to how it could revolutionize drug discovery and personalized medicine. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive...
Uh-oh. Sounds like a cliffhanger.
It is. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll dig into some real-world examples of how Pioneer is already making a difference. Plus, we'll explore the ethical considerations and potential challenges that come with this kind of powerful technology. So stay tuned for more.
It's really cool to see how Pioneer is already being used in research. Like we talked about cancer, but maybe a specific example would help, really show its potential.
Yeah, a real-world example would be great. What do you have in mind?
Okay, let's talk about alopecia. It's an autoimmune disease that causes hair loss, right? And before Pioneer, researchers knew some genes were involved, but they didn't really understand how they caused the disease.
Like they had a list of suspects, but no evidence.
Right, so they used Pioneer to analyze those genes and how they affect the interactome. What they found was pretty amazing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What did they discover?
Well, Pioneer showed that those genes were messing with a specific protein interaction that's involved in the immune system attacking hair follicles.
So they found the exact moment the immune system goes haywire.
Exactly. Now they know what to target with new drugs, maybe even stop the autoimmune attack completely.
That's amazing. It's like having a roadmap to the root of the problem. What does this mean for people with alopecia? Is there hope for new treatments?
Absolutely. This discovery has opened up a whole new path for drug development. Researchers are now looking at drugs that can tweak that specific protein interaction, potentially treating alopecia in a really targeted way.
That's huge. It's mind-blowing that a software program can have such a direct impact on people's lives.
I know, right? And it's not just alopecia pioneers being used to investigate all sorts of diseases, from cancer to rare genetic disorders, and every new discovery brings us closer to better treatments.
It's like a chain reaction of breakthroughs. But I'm curious, how will this affect the pharmaceutical industry with all these potential new treatments? Will it change the way drugs are developed and brought to market?
That's a really good question, and it's something a lot of experts are thinking about right now. One potential change is a move towards more targeted therapy.
Targeted therapies. Can you explain what you mean?
Well, a lot of drugs we have now, they target these broad biological processes. But with Pioneer, we can actually pinpoint the exact protein interactions that are causing a disease. So we can develop drugs that are much more specific.
It's like using a laser instead of a shotgun, right?
Exactly. More precision, which means fewer side effects and hopefully better results.
Sounds like a win-win for patients. But I'm curious, will this make drug development more expensive?
That's a tough one, and there's not a simple answer. Developing targeted therapies can be more complex, which could make it more expensive,
So it might not always save money.
Right. But on the other hand, Pioneer helps researchers find the best drug targets early on, so they don't waste time and money on things that won't work.
So it could actually speed up the whole process and reduce costs in the long run.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. The initial research might cost more, but the overall cost could be lower if it leads to faster development and fewer failed trials.
It makes sense. I have to admit, I'm a visual person. Would it be possible to actually see Pioneer in action? Like, how does it analyze the interactome and find those key protein interactions?
Absolutely. I can't show you the actual code, but I can describe what researchers see when they use it.
Okay, give me a virtual tour. What does it look like?
Imagine a giant web of dots and lines, kind of like a spider web. Each dot is a protein, and the lines connecting them are the interactions between those proteins.
So it's like a visual map of the interactome.
Exactly. And when researchers input data about a disease or a mutation, Pioneer highlights the parts of the network that are affected. It's like a spotlight shining on the key players.
So they can actually see which proteins are causing problems.
Yeah. And they can see how those proteins are interacting with each other, which helps them understand the disease better.
It's like those detective shows where they track the suspect's movements.
That's a good way to put it. And with this visual map, they can start figuring out how to disrupt those harmful interactions and develop new treatments.
This is so cool. It really makes the science come alive.
I agree. It shows how far we've come,
Yeah.
We have these incredible tools that let us understand and even manipulate human biology in ways we never thought possible.
It's mind-blowing. But I'm also thinking about the bigger picture, the long-term impact of Pioneer. We talked about drug development, but how could it change healthcare in general?
That's a great question. Pioneer could revolutionize not just drug discovery, but our whole approach to healthcare. We're talking personalized medicine, predictive medicine, even preventative medicine.
Whoa, those are some big ideas. Can you break those down for me?
Sure. Personalized medicine is about tailoring treatments to each individual, right? Pioneer could make that a reality for more diseases because it can analyze the interactome at a personal level.
So it's moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. And then there's predictive medicine, which is using data to predict future health risks. Pioneer could help identify people who are at higher risk for certain diseases so we can intervene early and maybe even prevent them altogether.
It's like seeing into the future of your health.
Kind of. And then preventative medicine is about taking steps to prevent diseases from happening in the first place. Pioneer could help us develop new strategies for that, from lifestyle changes to new therapies.
This is all so futuristic. It sounds like we're on the verge of a healthcare revolution.
It really does feel that way. And Pioneer is a driving force behind it. It's giving us the tools to understand and manipulate the complexities of human biology like never before.
And it's all thanks to the power of AI.
For sure. AI is changing everything, and healthcare is no exception. Pioneer is a perfect example of how AI can be used to improve human health.
I'm so excited about the possibilities, but I also feel a sense of responsibility. We're talking about powerful technologies that could change the world. We need to use them wisely.
You're absolutely right. With great power comes great responsibility, as they say. We need to be aware of the ethical implications and make sure Pioneer is used for good.
So what are some of the ethical things we need to be thinking about? What are the potential pitfalls we need to avoid?
One big one is data privacy and security. Pioneer uses a ton of genetic data, which is very personal and sensitive. We need to make sure that data is protected and used responsibly.
So we need to balance scientific progress with protecting people's privacy.
Exactly. We need clear guidelines and regulations to make sure that Pioneer and other AI technologies are used ethically. But data privacy isn't the only concern, right? What about bias?
Right, we talked about that earlier. If the data used to train Pioneer is biased, the AI could make unfair or discriminatory decisions.
That's a real risk. We need to make sure the data is diverse and representative of everyone. So we need to be very careful and thoughtful about how we use this technology.
This is all so important. The ethical side of things is just as complex as the science itself.
It really is. We need to be having these conversations now while we're developing and using these powerful technologies to make sure they're used responsibly and for the benefit of everyone.
That's a great point. It's a reminder that technology is a tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely and ethically.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The future of medicine is full of possibilities, but we need to approach it with both excitement and a sense of responsibility.
Well said. But before we get too deep into the ethical stuff, I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier.
Okay, what's that?
We talked about how Pioneer could level the playing field in drug discovery, allowing smaller research teams to compete with the big companies. But is that actually happening? Are we seeing smaller teams making big discoveries?
Definitely. One of the most exciting things about Pioneer is that it's already empowering smaller teams to make a real difference.
That's awesome. Can you give us some examples? I'd love to hear about those underdog stories.
Okay, here's a good one. There's this small research team at a university in Europe. They're using Pioneer to study a rare genetic disorder.
Interesting. What kind of disorder is it, and what are they hoping to find?
It's a disorder that only affects a tiny number of people worldwide, so big pharma companies haven't really paid much attention to it.
It's often the case with rare diseases, unfortunately. They don't get as much funding as more common conditions.
Yeah, it's a shame. But this small team is determined to find a treatment, and they're using Pioneer to do it.
That's awesome. How is Pioneer helping them?
They're using it to analyze the genetic mutations that cause the disorder and find potential drug targets. They're also using it to test existing drugs to see if any of them might work for this disorder.
So they're basically trying to repurpose existing drugs for a new use.
Exactly. It's a really smart and cost-effective strategy, and Pioneer is making it possible.
That's so inspiring. It shows that even small teams can make a big impact with the right tools.
Exactly. It all comes back to open access. It's giving everyone a chance to contribute to scientific progress, no matter who they are or where they come from.
This is truly amazing, but I'm curious, how are those big pharmaceutical companies reacting to this shift? Are they joining the open access movement, or are they feeling threatened?
It's a mix, honestly. Some companies are embracing the change and partnering with smaller teams. They see Pioneer as a way to speed up their own research and get access to new ideas.
So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
For sure. But other companies are more hesitant. They're used to a more secretive, competitive environment, and this new open access thing is a big change for them.
Yeah, I can see why they might be a little nervous, but embracing open access seems like the best way forward, right?
I think so. Open access encourages collaboration, speeds up innovation, and ultimately benefits patients. It's the future of drug discovery, and Pioneer is leading the way.
It's really incredible. But I have one more question.
Hmm.
With all this talk about Pioneer's potential, are there any real-world examples of it actually leading to new treatments? Like, has it helped bring any new drugs to market yet?
That's a great question. And even though Pioneer is still relatively new, we're already seeing some really promising results.
That's so exciting. Can you share some specific examples? I'd love to hear about those early success stories.
Sure. Here's one. Researchers at a big cancer center use Pioneer to find a new drug target for a specific type of leukemia.
Wow, a leukemia breakthrough. Tell me more about how Pioneer helped.
Well, they used Pioneer to analyze the genetic mutations associated with this leukemia. They discovered a protein interaction that nobody knew about before, and it turned out to be a major driver of the cancer's growth.
Like, they found the cancer's weak spot.
Exactly. And once they knew what to target, they were able to develop a drug that specifically attacks that protein interaction, stopping the cancer cells from growing.
That's amazing. Is this drug available to patients now?
It's still in clinical trials, but the early results are really promising.
That's wonderful news. It really shows how Pioneer can speed up drug discovery and give hope to people who are fighting these serious diseases.
It's truly remarkable. And it's not just cancer. We're seeing similar breakthroughs in other areas of medicine too, like heart disease and neurological disorders.
It's like Pioneer is unlocking all these new possibilities for treatments.
It is. And we're just getting started. As Pioneer continues to evolve and improve, I think we'll see even more groundbreaking discoveries in the coming years.
This is all incredibly exciting, but I also can't help but wonder about the potential downsides. Are there any concerns about unintended consequences?
That's a really important question. Whenever you have a powerful new technology, there's always the possibility of things going wrong or unintended consequences happening.
So, what are some of the potential risks? What are the things that researchers are worried about?
Well, one concern is that people might start relying too much on AI. It's important to remember that Pioneer and other AI tools are just tools. They're not replacements for human judgment and expertise.
So, we need to find the right balance between AI and human intelligence.
Exactly. We need to make sure that doctors and other healthcare professionals are still in charge, using their knowledge and experience to guide how these technologies are used.
Like a co pilot, but the human is still the one flying the plane.
Perfect analogy. And another concern is bias, which we talked about before. If the data used to train Pioneer is biased, the AI could make decisions that are unfair or discriminatory.
So, it's crucial to make sure that the data is diverse and represents everyone.
Absolutely. We need to be very careful about that to make sure everyone benefits equally from these advancements.
This is all so important. The ethical side of things is just as crucial as the science.
You're right. We need to have these conversations now while we're still developing and using these powerful technologies to make sure they're used responsibly and for the good of everyone.
It's a reminder that technology is a powerful tool, and it's our responsibility to use it wisely and ethically.
Well said. The future of medicine is full of exciting possibilities, but we need to approach it with both enthusiasm and a deep sense of responsibility.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay, what's that?
We talked about how Pioneer could level the playing field in drug discovery, allowing smaller research teams to compete with the big companies. But is that actually happening? Are we seeing smaller teams making big discoveries?
Definitely. One of the most exciting things about Pioneer is that it's already empowering smaller teams to make a real difference.
That's awesome. Can you give us some examples? I'd love to hear about those underdog stories.
Okay, here's a good one. There's this small research team at a university in Europe. They're using Pioneer to study a rare genetic disorder.
Interesting. What kind of disorder is it, and what are they hoping to find?
It's a disorder that only affects a tiny number of people worldwide, so big pharma companies haven't really paid much attention to it.
It's often the case with rare diseases, unfortunately. They don't get as much funding as more common conditions.
Yeah, it's a shame. But this small team is determined to find a treatment, and they're using Pioneer to do it.
That's awesome. How is Pioneer helping them?
They're using it to analyze the genetic mutations that cause the disorder and find potential drug targets. They're also using it to test existing drugs to see if any of them might work for this disorder.
So they're basically trying to repurpose existing drugs for new use.
Exactly. It's a really smart and cost-effective strategy, and Pioneer is making it possible.
That's so inspiring. It shows that even small teams can make a big impact with the right tools.
Exactly. It all comes back to open access. It's giving everyone a chance to contribute to scientific progress, no matter who they are or where they come from.
This is truly amazing, but I'm curious, how are those big pharmaceutical companies reacting to this shift? Are they joining the open access movement, or are they feeling threatened?
It's a mix, honestly. Some companies are embracing the change and partnering with smaller teams. They see Pioneer as a way to speed up their own research and get access to new ideas.
So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
For sure. But other companies are more hesitant. They're used to a more secretive, competitive environment, and this new open access thing is a big change for them.
Yeah, I can see why they might be a little nervous. But embracing open access seems like the best way forward, right?
I think so. Open access encourages collaboration, speeds up innovation, and ultimately benefits patients. It's the future of drug discovery, and Pioneer is leading the way.
It's really incredible. But I have one more question. With all this talk about Pioneer's potential, are there any real-world examples of it actually leading to new treatments? Like, has it helped bring any new drugs to market yet?
That's a great question. And even though Pioneer is still relatively new, we're already seeing some really promising results.
That's so exciting. Can you share some specific examples? I'd love to hear about those early success stories.
Sure, here's one. Researchers at a big cancer center used Pioneer to find a new drug target for a specific type of leukemia.
Wow, a leukemia breakthrough. Tell me more about how Pioneer helped.
Well, they used Pioneer to analyze the genetic mutations associated with this leukemia. They discovered a protein interaction that nobody knew about before, and it turned out to be a major driver of the cancer's growth.
Like they found the cancer's weak spot?
Exactly. And once they knew what to target, they were able to develop a drug that specifically attacks that protein interaction, stopping the cancer cells from growing.
That's amazing. Is this drug available to patients now?
It's still in clinical trials, but the early results are really promising.
That's wonderful news. It really shows how Pioneer can speed up drug discovery and give hope to people who are fighting these serious illnesses.
It really is, and it's just one example of many. We're seeing similar breakthroughs in other areas of medicine too,
Yeah.
like heart disease and neurological disorders.
It's like Pioneer is unlocking all these new possibilities for treatments.
It is, and we're just getting started. As Pioneer continues to evolve and improve, I think we'll see even more groundbreaking discoveries in the coming years.
This is all incredibly exciting, but I also can't help but wonder about the potential downsides. Are there any concerns about unintended consequences?
That's a really important question. Whenever you have a powerful new technology, there's always the possibility of things going wrong or unintended consequences happening.
Okay, welcome back. I'm still thinking about everything we talked about with Pioneer. It's amazing how it could impact healthcare around the world.
I know, right? It's not just about drug development, but global health too.
Exactly. So, how do you think Pioneer could make a difference there?
Well, think about diseases that are really bad in developing countries, like malaria or TB game. Traditional drug development for those has been, well, slow.
Because it's not as profitable for those big drug companies, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But Pioneer could change that. Because it's open access, researchers in those countries can use it to develop drugs faster.
So they'd have this powerful new weapon to fight those diseases.
That's the idea. And it could lead to cheaper treatments, making healthcare more affordable for the people who need it most.
That would be incredible. Are there challenges, though, in making that happen?
Of course, access to technology and having the right infrastructure is a big problem in a lot of places. And training people to use Pioneer takes time and money. It's not easy.
It's not enough to just have the software. You need the knowledge and the systems to use it.
Exactly. But I'm hopeful. We're seeing more partnerships between universities in richer and poorer countries and programs to teach researchers how to use AI tools like Pioneer.
So there's a real effort to make this technology available to everyone.
Yeah, the goal is to democratize scientific discovery and make sure everyone benefits. But let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture.
Okay, what's the ultimate goal? What do you see for Pioneer's future in medicine?
I picture a future where Pioneer and things like it are everywhere in healthcare. Imagine your doctor using AI to analyze your genes and tell you what diseases you might get.
It's like a personalized health prediction.
Exactly. And then based on that, they could recommend things to do, like lifestyle changes or maybe even personalized treatments to keep you from getting sick.
Wow, so healthcare becomes proactive instead of reactive?
Right. And because Pioneer can find drug targets so fast, we could develop new treatments much quicker, even for new diseases that pop up.
Like a rapid response team for any health threat.
Exactly. But, like we said before, we can't forget about the ethics of it all.
You're right. We talked about data privacy and bias, but are there other ethical things we need to consider?
One thing that worries me is that it could make health disparities even worse. If only rich people can afford pioneer-driven healthcare, it'll leave a lot of people behind.
Yeah, it would create a two-tiered system, with the wealthy getting the best AI-powered care and everyone else struggling.
That's a big problem. We need to make sure these advances help everyone, rich or poor.
What can we do to prevent that?
It's going to take a lot of things working together. Government policies that ensure equal access, more investment in healthcare in poor communities, and scientists need to be really responsible about how they develop and share these technologies.
So it's not just about the science itself, but how it's used in society.
Exactly. We all have a responsibility to make sure these advancements benefit all of humanity.
This has been a really amazing conversation. It's clear that Pioneer is a game changer, but we need to be careful and thoughtful about how we use it.
I agree. It's such an exciting time with the potential to transform healthcare in incredible ways.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to make sure everyone benefits.
Well said. And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into Pioneer.
It's been a fantastic journey.
It really has. We've explored the complexities of the human interactome, seen the power of artificial intelligence firsthand, and glimpsed a future where drug discovery is faster, more efficient, and more personalized than ever before.
And this is just the beginning.
Exactly. As Pioneer continues to evolve and inspire new innovations, I have no doubt that we'll see even more amazing breakthroughs in the years to come. But remember, technology is only as powerful as the people who use it.
So true. It's up to all of us to use these incredible tools wisely and ethically, ensuring that they serve humanity and make the world a better, healthier place.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of exploration. We hope you've enjoyed diving into the world of Pioneer and the future of medicine as much as we have.
It's been an absolute pleasure sharing this deep dive with you all.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask those big questions.